So I'm just going to talk a little bit about our story, briefly how we started, because I think that context is really important, what we're doing now, and some of the big challenges and shifts that we've been through on that journey. So NewBridge started in 2010, and it was set up by two fine art graduates from Newcastle University. And it was really a response to the situation in Newcastle at that time. We all graduated together in 2009, and we found it very difficult to find studio space that was affordable and to find opportunities as well for early career practitioners, as well as that kind of artist community. So we felt very isolated actually when we got kind of, spit out of the other end of university. And at that time there was also a scheme that the City Council were running to put arts projects into empty shops. And Will, both called Will, the two guys that set it up, were lucky enough to get one of those grants to do a project in an empty building, an empty shop, and that was an initial grant of £5,000 that we got at the beginning. They looked for an empty shop, and in the end were offered this entire building instead. So it was a 5-storey office block right in the city centre of Newcastle, and it was a bit, it was too good an opportunity to really say no to. But as recent graduates, we didn't really have a clue what we were doing. We had to very quickly set up a company. We set up a CIC, put a grant into the Arts Council. And initially, we started using this building as studio space, and it was just for recent graduates, and it was as affordable as we could, warrant to cover the cost. So I think initially, when we started, it was £12 a week for a studio. And we started just with 15 artists, but over the years, we grew and we kind of filled and inhabited the whole building. Having 80 artists in there, and then we had on the street level a gallery space, an artist bookshop, and a workshop space as well. And I think it still comes down to 3 main things that NewBridge does, and they were there from the very beginning, and that is still core to what we do. So it's the facilities and the space for artists to make work, and the opportunity to exhibit it and show the work. So it wasn't about just providing that cheap space that you come and work in, but it was about what we do with that work then, how we kind of create a platform for that work to be seen. And then also a place where our practice could develop, and there was a criticality to it as well. And I think the main thing that those 3 kind of elements orbit around is that idea of community as well. So of it being an artist community, and that's that is the glue that kind of connects those 3 elements, and it is led, and everything we do is led and shaped by the members, by that community, and that's something that has been very important in the kind of history of NewBridge, that we always are looking at ways that we are protecting that and we're retaining that, and it remains artist-led and experimental and responsive, and it isn't a top-down, it is grassroots, and there is a way in for everyone to come in and self-organise. If they want to set up a dark room, there's a space, set up a dark room and run it. Has that changed? Yeah. So now I'm just going to go through a little bit about what our programme is. So we've actually moved out of the previous building, and I'll go on to that in a little bit, because I wanted to talk a little bit about the experience of that move. But we now provide studios for 126 artists, and that's across 2 buildings, Carlisle House in Newcastle and an empty shop space on the High Street in Gateshead. We also provide a number of other spaces, so we have a wood workshop, a dark room, a film lab, and we have a number of we call them uncurated project spaces. So there's just spaces where anything can happen. Anyone can use them. You can use them to make a big piece of work for a month, to do a workshop, someone's doing a dance class there, to put on your own exhibition. And we also have a number of communal spaces across the building as well. And that's something that's really really important, a space that all of the members and the artists can gravitate to, can meet in. So it's not just these are the locked spaces, these are your individual studios, but there is that communal space and there is that space where that community can be nurtured. And we also provide spaces within our buildings to a number of other collectives and organisations such as Gold Tapped, Wonderbar, Milk. Yeah, and from the very beginning, from when we'd set up, we have run an exhibition programme. So we've had a gallery space. It's moved a few times. This is actually not our current gallery space, but that is quite new, so I don't have any photos of that at the moment. And the focus has really been on supporting artists to make new work and to present that. And to present it on their own terms as well. So without there being the kind of limitations of working in an institutional space. So really a space where you can experiment and anything can happen. So we have a very diverse programme because of that. I'll go back to that last one. From solo presentations like this to very kind of participatory projects, such as this, looking at kind of food sustainability. Oh, this is the, I put this in because it's actually a project we did called the Regeneration Game. And I thought, oh, we're doing another Regeneration Game later. So I thought that was quite interesting. So it was a live game show based on the structure of the Generation Game. And the space is really, we show artists at all different stages of their careers, so from recent graduates, early career to more mid-career, and it's a mixture of studio members to artists that are from across the UK and international artists as well. And it's about kind of providing an even platform where artists at different stages, working in different ways in different mediums, can come together on that kind of same level. And I should mention that the way that we programme our gallery is with a programme committee. So we work with a rolling committee that is made up of our studio members. And again, that is part of our commitment to being artist-led, to making sure that our programme is something that our members want to see, that they're excited about bringing new voices, new work, new artists, new ideas into the city, as well as championing the artists, the regional artists that are also working in Newcastle. So the kind of third element to what we do of supporting artist practice hinges around an artist development programme that we run called Practice Makes Practice. And again, that is run by our members, so it's for artists by artists. And it's a kind of rolling monthly programme. We have loads of different things, crits, workshops, field trips, mentoring, one-to-one sessions. And that is open to all of our studio members as well as associate members. So we have a kind of tiered membership to enable the programme, the facilities that we have, the resources to be accessed by as wide a community of artists as possible. So it really has kind of broadened the community of artists that we're able to work with. So it's not just studio members, but also that associate membership. And again, that is led by another steering group that's made up of artists. So it's very responsive. Oh God, really? Shit. Okay, and I'm going to rush now. The newest element of what we do, of our programme, is the Collective Studio, which is a graduate development programme, and that has grown out of Practice Makes Practice, but it's also kind of come from, I guess, the foundations of why we started, of setting up to support recent graduates. So this is a partnership with Newcastle University, and it's a 12-month development programme for recent graduates. And within it, there is a subsidised studio space, mentoring, peer-led development, events and workshops, and a number of opportunities and exhibitions. It is as well open to visual artists, but also creative writers, curators, photographers, filmmakers, musicians. So it's a very broad range of creative practice that the Collective Studio is supporting. And that has really, it's evolved very organically. So it started as a few studios that we set aside in our old building for graduates to have straight out of university. The next year it kind of evolved slightly again by providing mentoring from existing studio members, and then it's kind of expanded, and that's based on the kind of experiences, the feedback that we're getting from the graduates that have undertaken the programme year on year. So the move, sorry, I'm going to run a bit over, is that okay? Okay. So the big things that we've been through that have affected the way we worked and really challenged us and challenged our very ethos actually, and our ethics, I guess you could say, is when we received notice on our building in, which was the first slide I showed you, our kind of first home, in October 2016. And we'd been there for nearly 7 years. So we'd had a pretty good run actually. And I should explain that the way we occupied that building was on a meanwhile lease. So it was the whole kind of site we were situated in the city centre was an accelerated redevelopment zone, and the landlord said, "Oh, you can have it for a bit, and then we'll just get it back when we want to redevelop it." And they'd initially said, "Oh, it'll be a year at the most." So actually 7 years, it felt like a good run. And we did have a clause which was a 1 month notice clause. So when they gave us that notice, when they served it, we would have, officially, legally 1 month to vacate. So we managed to negotiate 6 months when we got the notice, because we had at that point over 80 artists in the building and a whole programme to deliver. And we set about thinking, oh shit, what the hell do we do? We've got all of these artists. Where do we go? And we were in a good position because we had actually already started working with a development director. So we'd raised some money from Arts Council to bring someone into the organisation to support our thinking around getting a new building, creating an exit strategy for our old building. What is it? What type of building do we even need? Or do we even need a building? So we'd begun a lot of consultation with studio members. We had loads of meetings, loads of workshops together to try and really pull out what is it that makes NewBridge unique? What is it that people really value? So everyone can say, oh yeah, the bookshop's great, I go all the time, but do they really go? Is that what we need? And we found that actually it was affordable studios. That's, it's so important for artists to have that, because if they're not affordable, no one can pay for their studios and continue to make work. But also that idea of community and that development and that support. So it was the things that we were doing already. But we also kind of on a very practical level started to kind of create a framework for, you know, what is the kind of the costs that artists can afford? How much can we spend on our studio? What is the location? How far can we go? So we visited loads of different buildings when we were looking for a new site. Some wildly unsuitable ones. And we managed to, we managed to find one just around the corner, actually. So this is Carlisle House, which is our new studio, and it is the same landlord that we had previously, but it is a different agreement that we've occupied this building on. So again, it is another meanwhile building, so it isn't ideal. It isn't what we, you know, wanted, but we had 6 months to find somewhere to move over 80 people. So we decided that actually this was the best option for now. We have a 2-year lease on this building, and we have a 6-month break clause. It is rent-free. We just have to cover it. It has to be cost neutral to the landlord, so we have to pay business rates, utilities, and we see this as a stepping stone. So we've undertaken this massive move. It was very emotional, you know, it was very kind of it was tiring for everyone, and for all of the artists that had put so much into, you know, their studios. But, you know, we very much did it together. You know, everyone helped carry things around the corner. Each floor supported each other to move out of the building and into this one. And actually, it was a real positive experience, and it's really kind of consolidated the community of artists. Oh, it's not moving. But we have had to make sacrifices. I'm not sure why it's not. We have had to make some sacrifices. So by going into this building, we don't really have any public space. So this houses all of our studios and workshops and production spaces. But the landlord didn't want us to have any gallery space, any publicly accessible space. So we went elsewhere to other spaces, and we relocated NewBridge Bookshops into Baltic 39. So that is a partnership that we've developed with the Baltic Centre for Contemporary Art. And actually that is, you know, it's beneficial for us. They have staff there that staff that, and it enables us to continue that. The bookshop, and we've also set.
Sorry.
Oh, am I going to have to finish?
Yeah, and I can't change it. I'm not sure why I haven't set it up like that.
Should I just mention our other space briefly? Yeah.
Do you want to do it quickly in a minute?
In a minute. Yeah.
1 minute. Yeah.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay, right. Yeah. I thought you meant in a minute, so I'll just wait a minute and then do it. And then we also. Last year opened a new space in Gateshead, which is in an empty shop, and that enables us to have a public gallery space there, which is where we run our programme from. And we also have 15 studios in that building as well, and that's the main basis of the Collective Studio, our graduate programme. So moving into that space was very much enabled by the university and the connection that we have with them and that partnership that we've developed. And that's something that the university have committed to supporting over the next 4 years. So we're very lucky to have kind of built up that relationship with them gradually, and really developed that. And I think that really comes from the fact that, you know, we were all graduates from Newcastle, and we have organically kind of developed that together and grown that partnership together. There's loads of things I didn't talk about, I'm really sorry. But yeah, if anyone wants to chat about any of that, I'll be around all day. Thank you.